as a goof, it breaks the body. And that's why it says, according to one opinion, Avedas Perach is that they gave the men the work from the women, and they gave the women the jobs of the men. Because it's a change in nature, it actually breaks a person. So therefore, because of the revelations that they experienced in refining their character traits during the 49 days of the counting, it could very be possible, and it makes very much sense, that they will remain, and they'll remain in their own Aveda, in their own refinement, and get drowned in it, and not get to Matan Torah. And not get to Torah. As we say it in the Agoda, Ilu Kervono Lefnei Har Sinai, he would have brought us to Har Sinai, he would have brought us to Mount Sinai, we wouldn't have given us Torah, Dayenu would have been enough. So the question is, what's that Yom Tov? What is it coming to Torah and stopping there? So there are many different explanations given. One explanation is that coming to Mount Sinai united the Jewish nation, and that alone was worthwhile.
Wow.
So therefore, because a person might sometimes see the quality of something along the way, as that person that's going through the whole palace and is looking at every room separately and gets sunk into and captured by the different pearls and precious stones that one sees, and they forget to go to the king, which is who's in the back. So the same thing is also in regards to the giving the Torah. A person sometimes might see some revelations before giving the Torah and forget about what the Torah is about, what the giving of the Torah is about. So therefore we tell a person, don't forget, in the background of all these revelations, there is the ultimate of everything, and that is the king himself. The king himself is sitting in a back room. And this is basically also what King David says in chapter 73. Who is with me? Everything even with you, I don't want. I don't want even anything with you. As the Rav Shneimur Zalman of Liadi says, and as the Rebbe mentions it in his classic calendar, Hayom Yom, which the Rebbe wrote 70 years ago. So the Rebbe sums up the whole teachings of the Hayom Yom, which is a calendar for every day, in 1943, 383 quotes. So the Rebbe says it's in English, it's in Braille, it's in Portuguese, it's in Russian, it's in Spanish, it's in French, Yiddish, Hebrew. So the Alter Rebbe says, during meditation, when he would meditate before prayer, so he said, I don't want your Gan Eden, I don't want your Elam Haba, I don't want your Garden of Eden, I don't want the world to come. I want only you alone. Who is the you alone? The Almighty Himself. And here it's interesting how the Alter Rebbe, Rav Shneimur Zalman of Liadi, phrases it. He says, I don't want your Gan Eden, even if it's yours, it's associated with you. It is your Elam Haba. But this is all revelations. I want only you alone. So the Rebbe says, true, a person needs to learn Torah, a person needs to fulfill mitzvahs, a person has to relate to this physical world. But a person has to remember, never to be satisfied at any point, but not to forget that we also need the one that gave us the Torah. Not only that He gave us that we're taking Torah, but we should remember that the one that gave us the Torah. And that's why there's 15 Dayenos. When it comes to the Agoda, there's 15. Some people get stuck by the first, some by the second, some by the third. We have to remember that we want everything. Ad uvono lono as beis abchira. This is the last one, the 15th of all the Dayenos is uvono lono as beis abchira, building us the temple, which is the ultimate goal of bringing down the godly revelation in this physical world, the Shekhinah. And in order that a person should have this instinct, this intuition, not to be satisfied with revelations, they needed to go through the Avedas Perach, the difficult work, the torturous work in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. Avedas Perach has two meanings. Avedas Perach, one pirush means exertion, the other pirush means crumbs, broken into crumbs. It broke them. It took they lost their entity. When a person, for example, is completely tortured, a person forgets who they are. They are broken into crumbs. There's no entity. In Yiddish it's referred to Ois Metzias. There's no Metzias. There's no being. And this is the preparation for Torah, because this is how a person becomes humble, feels humiliated like a poor person, and a poor person says, I don't want revelations, I have nothing, I want everything. And therefore only the poor person will remember to go to the king in the back, and not forget he has to get to the king, and not get misled, distracted by the precious stones and pearls and everything that is along the way in the palace of the king. Which this is basically the concept of Matan Torah. And based on this, we understand many different concepts. Chassidus explains what is the concept of Matan Torah. It's reflected in many different ways. Matan Torah came after the introduction of the exile in Egypt. Egyptian exile. The Egyptian exile was considered like a furnace that refines the silver and extracts and separates between the extract and the silver itself. The Jewish nation also went through the furnace. The furnace is basically the refinement that they needed to go through to prepare for Matan Torah. As mentioned earlier, breaking them in a certain sense that they became as a poor person that knows that they want only everything together. Getting closer to Matan Torah, getting closer to the giving of the Torah after Pesach. So there are many different events that took place then. There was an event of Nasa v'Nishma. The Jews said, we will do and we will hear. We will understand. There was another event that the Talmud tells us that Moshe elevated into heaven, as the Talmud tells us in the tractate of Shabbos, and had a whole debate there with the angels. The angels were arguing, why is Torah given to human beings? But give it here. As we say it in the chapter in Tehillim, in chapter 8, now if I remember well, it says, Mo enish kisis kereno, ven adam kisif kedeno. What do you have to remember the humankind? No heit chala shamayim. Give your shine on heaven. Give Torah on the heaven. Which actually there were 3 times that they argued, the angels. One of them was when the person, Adam was created. So it says, what is the uniqueness of humankind? Then comes Torah, and then comes the 3rd time. Basically, the time of Torah was a hard debate. They went over to Moshe Rabbeinu, to the Almighty, and they said, what is this? What's going on here? The Almighty told Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what? You answer them. You answer them. Moshe Rabbeinu was very scared. The Talmud tells us that the Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid to answer. The Almighty told him, hold on to my throne. And he answered. And this is what he said to them, very simply. Were you ever in Egypt? No. Do you have human parents? No. Do you have an evil inclination? No. He says, what connection do you have with Torah? They accepted it. They gave him gifts, and they let him come down again. Basically, what does this mean? That the idea of Torah, in addition to the fact that Torah is connecting with the Almighty, a unlimited bond with the Almighty as a bride and a groom, the Jewish nation being the bride. There's also another concept. And the concept is that Torah was given in this physical world. It was given in this physical world for a purpose. Not that the Jewish nation were lifted up to the seventh heaven, or they were lifted up onto Mount Sinai. They were on the ground, and the Almighty descended on Mount Sinai, and He gave Torah. And before that, there was a barricade, there was a decree, a cutoff point separating between higher spheres and lower spheres. And then came the Almighty and says, I am going to remove it, and I will be the first one to demonstrate it. And this is when the Almighty descended on Mount Sinai. And after that, it says that He told Moses to elevate. That is a two-way street. Coming, the higher spheres being drawn down, or higher revelations being brought down in this world, and the lower worlds and creations having the potential to elevate a higher spiritual standard and experience. This was done exclusively by the giving of the Torah. And this is also the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu told him, he says, what connection do you have with Torah? Torah is basically teaching a person how to refine oneself and how to refine the world and elevate the world. And here comes in a very interesting insight, an insight that the Rebbe once explained. Why did the Almighty need Moshe to tell him that? He saw Moshe was a human being. Moshe was scared stiff. He said he was afraid they'll burn him. With their mouth, he says, Shema Yisrifuni ba'avleim, they'll burn me with their mouth. With the air that comes out of their mouth. The word air, the way, whatever is happening up there. Not physical air, we're talking about spiritual. So the question is, why was it that Moshe needed to do it? And here comes in a very beautiful thought. The whole idea of receiving Torah needs to be also on the behalf of the Jewish nation. It's not only an offer that is coming from above to below. There needs to be an acceptance. There needs to be a commitment. There needs to be an initiative on the part of the below. This is when Moshe Rabbeinu put up this argument. He is representing the Jewish nation and fighting and says, yes, definitely, Torah belongs to the Jewish nation, as they are in this physical world. And that is why the Almighty wanted that Moshe Rabbeinu should be. He was the advocate for the Jewish nation, that the Jewish nation is demanding it. And that is why when it comes to Shavuos, it's interesting, there's two concepts. One is called Matan Torah, one is called Kabbalah Torah. Giving of the Torah, receiving the Torah. These are two ends. There's two different worlds here. There is one, the donor, the giving. There's one, the receiver. Now, how did the Jewish nation prepare for the giving of the Torah? They needed to have some kind of commitment. They just came out of Egypt. They just became a nation when they came out of Egypt. As the Medrash says in Mechilta, it's like a fetus taken out from the womb of the mother. Lokachas le goy mekerev goy, one nation from another. And here they're by Matan Torah. A jump, an extreme jump. So there was a deep commitment that was expressed on behalf of the Jewish nation. And that is Nasa v'nishma. When they said Nasa v'nishma, they didn't just say, we'll do, or as v'nishma will hear, which actually, when we say we'll do, it's not, logically, we can't say we'll do and then we'll hear. How do we know what to do if we don't hear? The answer, Chassidus explains, v'nishma means we'll understand. Now, what is the difference? There are two different yokes that one takes upon himself. There's one yoke that's called El Malchus Shamayim, a yoke that is committing oneself to the king himself, and then there is a yoke taking upon oneself fulfilling a specific commandment. Now, when a person, for example, commits himself to fulfill a certain commandment, if it's eating matzah, Shabbos, other commandments, observing the Shabbos, it is a commitment, but to a certain extent. A person commits oneself, whatever he needs to fulfill that commandment. But it's not a total commitment that should touch the core of a person's soul. On the other hand, when a person commits himself to the king, he is ready to fulfill everything the king tells him. The king will tell him to chop wood, he'll chop wood. If the Almighty will tell us to chop wood, it becomes one of the 613 commandments. How could we say it? Here we have tefillin, which are sacred, and they have names of the Almighty, and they're something they can never, even when they're not kosher anymore, because of different deficiencies that they have, you cannot just throw it away in the garbage. You have to put it amongst holy scriptures. And here we're talking about chopping wood. So the answer is, it's not what we're doing, it's for whom we're doing. It is called Kabbalah Sil Malchus Shamayim. For example, the world is an expression. It's all for the boss. It's basically, the idea is doing for the king. It's the king that we're doing for. And this is basically what it means, Nasa v'nishma. Their commitment was not just a commitment for one individual thing. It was a commitment that we're ready to hear everything you'll tell us. Because we're committing ourselves. We're committing ourselves to the king himself. We're committing ourselves to the king himself. Commit completely, unanimously. Therefore, on our part, it touches our whole core. Because this is not just one commandment, 2 commandments, 10 commandments. It is whatever the king will tell us. So therefore, we are not an entity for ourselves to a certain extent. We are committing ourselves completely to the king. This is called Kablu Malchusai. Accept upon yourself my royalty.